Okay, well,
Yeah.
uh, here we are with John Wertheim. I don't never know how to pronounce well your last name because the W has to be pronounced like Germans do or the Americans do.
Either way, where it's like Scanagatta, it doesn't roll off the tongue quite as easily. Usually, Americanized gets a hard W and not the German V, but it's small points, either one.
Yeah, well, I don't want to pronounce it badly since I know you since years and years. And you were guest in my house in Florence. I was guest in yours in New York. So, I mean, it would be nice if at least I would know how to pronounce it well. Anyway, look, first of all, thanks for being with us. Even if I was not technologically prepared to do a better video with both of us on the screen, but they can see you, and which is much better. Just tell me, well, first of all, I wanted to ask you about what is the situation of Sports Illustrated, because even in Italy, it's has been quite a popular magazine, and we were told that some people are not working there anymore. And what is the situation, and how Sports Illustrated is reacting to this problem of the coronavirus? I mean, what do you do? What people do?
It's a great question. I mean, I think we're all trying to figure that out, and you know as well, it's been a challenging time for media for years and years now, and everybody is trying to adjust. So Sports Illustrated, it's no longer a weekly, but it still exists, and the website is pretty robust, and their podcasts, and it's trying to find its way in this strange media world. It was recently sold and purchased, so there's a new ownership, but things have been settled down the last maybe 90 days. The start to the year, I think things had calmed down. There's a new ownership group. Everybody was figuring out sort of their roles and priorities. And then all of a sudden, we have the challenge of being a sports media outlet with no sports. So, it's been an interesting time. Luckily, there's 60 years of archives to draw on, and there is a website, and there are creative ways to tell stories. But I do think, like ESPN, like The Athletic, like so many other sports media outlets, we're very eagerly awaiting the return of actual games, because right now it's a challenging time.
Yes, and there are many less people that are working for Sports Illustrated compared to before.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know the numbers. It's as much a shift as anything else. So you used to have this weekly magazine with, dozens of writers and editors, and now the numbers are probably comparable, but it's web producers, and it's a podcast team, and there's a video studio. I think it's probably very similar to a lot of other media outlets where you've changed because you want to go to where the audience is. So they're not nearly as many. I mean, I started writing at Sports Illustrated more than 20 years ago, and the writing staff is much smaller, but there's also now an entire digital newsroom, and there's a podcast studio and a video studio. So I think it's more about shifting resources than cutting. But it's been, it's been a wild ride, like anyone else in media over the last 20 years would probably has a similar experience.
Yeah, and now also the subjects have been changed. Let's say that, especially now that there is no sports going on, how do you sustain this difficult time?
I mean, the good thing about sports is that it's grown so far beyond games and athletes. I mean, the athletes are still, the phone numbers still work, and you still can write a profile of an athlete, and there are investigations you can still be doing, and there are social issues. And again, the video aspect really helps, that you can still do a podcast, you can still do a video show. And we've also really gone through the archive. So, Sports Illustrated's been around for more than 60 years. So you can here are, the top 10 tennis stories over the last 60 years. I mean, I think we can go back in the archives. But no, I mean, there's no question. It's a challenge, and you prepare for a lot of things, right? And team A wins versus team B wins, and you can prepare even for, there might be a strike in one of the NBA players may go on strike. What are we going to do? But nobody prepared for all of sports to stop at the same time. So this is like nothing I've ever seen. At the same time, too, it's sports and it's diversion, and you live in New York as I do, and you hear sirens and you see doctors pulling 18-hour shifts, and you can't complain too loudly if there's no French Open this year or if the NBA season gets cut off. So I think, we all miss sports, but I think we also are realizing that they're a luxury and not an essential.
Yeah, of course. Maybe the quality of the writings will be better, because we have to try to do, better writing, better quality. I mean, probably, just because we know that if you're not able to interest really the readers, then they will drop you out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is sort of forcing a lot of people in media to think about creative ways to tell stories and ways to do work that isn't necessarily obvious or takes them out of their comfort zone. Again, sports are so big. There is so much that goes on, and there are scandals, and there's, the Olympic postponement and athlete. I mean, there's still creative ways to talk about sports. So I don't think, you fold up your tents and you say, I'm going on vacation until the games resume. But it's definitely a much different exercise than it is if we could be talking about Miami tennis and basketball, and the Masters are coming up in a few weeks. So this is new territory for all of us.
Listen, and okay, going to the tennis, to our, at least it's my favorite sport. I think you probably follow not just tennis. You've been following all sports. I mean, what difference you see between tennis and the other sports? Of course, team sports are different, and players have a contract. Most of them, in basketball, I know that you are depending. I mean, in America, you're depending from the NBA league, while in Italy the basketball players, they depend on the team, so they are employed by the team. In soccer, we have also the players that just today Juventus is reducing 40% of the salaries of their players. Some other teams are reducing 30%. In tennis, it's a different situation, because the tennis players are individuals who, if they do not have a chance to play in a tournament, they lose all their money. What do you think about this, and what could be done? Do you think ATP should do something to help them, or what?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is the problem with being in an individual sport, that you don't have a guaranteed contract, and you're your own employer. I mean, everybody's sort of an independent contractor. So if they say there's no Indian Wells, there's no Miami, there's no clay court events in Europe this spring, that's your income. I think that the tours, I don't know what sort of resources the tours have.
Sorry if I interrupt you. Compared to a few years ago, when the players were already individuals, they didn't have a team behind them. Now, it's not just the player, it's the player, the coach, the physio, the doctor, I don't know, there are maybe team, 7 people maybe behind the player.
Yeah, exactly. And 7 people who probably have contracts, who probably are still being paid. I think what we're seeing is that, and we knew this already, right? That if you're one of the top players, you deserve everything you've made, but it's a very different life. You have a gym at home, and you have private airfare, and it doesn't take much to go to a next level where players are really starting to worry about their finances. The other thing about tennis compared to other sports is just how global it is. So these guys are on airplanes probably more than any other athlete. You're walking into a locker room and you may have players from 50 or 60 different parts of the world. And you're playing in Miami one week, and the next week you could be in Monte Carlo, and the week after that you could be in Spain. So I think for a global pandemic where A, we're not supposed to have contact with other people, but B, we're not supposed to move around. I think tennis's globalization is one of its great strengths, but I think in this case, it's very, very tricky. I mean, I know Djokovic in Miami made this point to the other players where he said, listen, one player's physio sits in the back of a plane and the player gets it and walks into a locker room, and all of a sudden we all are now susceptible to this virus, and we're all going to take it back to 50 or 60 different countries. So if we're talking about something where it's a global pandemic, I think tennis probably suffers more than other sports.
And so, do you think the ATP should come in to help at least, I don't know, the players who are not Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, but those are the other ones? I mean, maybe from top 50, after the top 50 or behind the top 30, I don't know, and until which level? I mean, because, there are players who leave out of challengers,
I don't know what you think of this. Somebody made a point to me. They said that, yes, there should be some sort of relief. Here in the United States, we had this big $2 trillion relief package, the stimulus package. What if the ATP this year said everything we're doing from the tour finals, everything from the London event that usually goes to the tour, the top players who are doing very well, maybe they want to take a big reduction in prize money, and maybe the ATP wants to use the World Tour final as a way to set up a relief fund for other players. An agent suggested that to me, and I thought that was an interesting idea. The women would do the same thing from the Shenzhen event, where there are millions and millions. Ash Barty won more money for winning Shenzhen than she did for winning the French Open. What if the tours put that year-end event into a relief fund for all the players? And then you're right, you'd have to figure out, does the number 50 guy get more than the number 100 guy? But that's an easy negotiation, I think. What do you think? Yeah. What do you think of that?
Well, I think for sure something should be done. Not easy what to suggest. I think that Andrea Gaudenzi and Calvelli, they were not very lucky in getting this job this year, because they had to face such incredible situation, and they were brave enough. I think when they decided to suspend, I mean, the ATP circuit much earlier than the WTA, and very quick until it was 6 weeks, and then they say with no tennis before this I think June the 7th or the 6th. So they did already something good. It's not easy for them, because of course they couldn't expect this kind of situation. I wonder, for instance, if Andrea Gaudenzi also should make maybe a gesture himself, because I know that some, I don't know if commissioner or responsible in America of certain sports, they have given part of their salary to the league. I don't know if Andrea is thinking about. I don't know. It's not even maybe nice of us to suggest it, but maybe something could be done also on that. Let's say
that's in the. You mentioned the NBA, for example. All of the NBA executives have already taken a pay cut. So I think we'll see. I mean, it's obviously a different relationship, the tour versus the players. But I spoke last week with Pospisil, with Vasek Pospisil, who's not, he's not Roger Federer, but he's been in the top 25, and he's a good player, and he's home alone in his apartment in Vancouver, and he's not making any money this week. What do you say to that guy? So It'll be interesting to see how long this goes on, and it will be interesting to see how long before the players say, wait a second, there should be some sort of relief for us here because we need to keep making a living while there's no tennis.
Yeah, and do you believe Roland Garros made the wrong move, or they were arrogant in doing that in a way, or maybe they still give a chance to those players who can make 45,000 euros losing in the first round that maybe another tournament wouldn't offer. So you have to see both ways. Even I don't think they thought about that first.
Yeah, I think it's at some level we'll see. If no players boycott, that's going to tell you something. And it would have been nice if they had reached this as an agreement and not unilaterally. But we all know how complicated tennis is and how the calendar is cluttered. This is one of the big events. I mean, this is, as you say, 256 players are going to make a minimum of $50,000.
Yeah.
In the first round, if I'm a player, I'm more happy that the FFT and the French Open is trying to figure out a way to still be held in 2020 than I'm upset that a couple of events may have been overshadowed. So
if you were a player, if you were a player, that's a tough question. Careful in your answer. If you were a player, would you boycott the French Open?
No, no. I'm saying if I'm a player, I'm much more happy that there's going to be a French Open than I'm upset that there wasn't a lot of communication. No, I don't think any players are going to. I mean, maybe Federer says it's too late in the year and it's clay. But no, I think every player's going to be thrilled that there's still that opportunity in 2020.
And forget about the Laver Cup or postpone the Laver Cup.
Yeah, I mean, we all love the Laver Cup. We all love Roger. But, this is an invitation-only event that is only open really to 8 players, and none of them are women. I wish there were a Laver Cup and it were strong and healthy. I wish there were a French Open and they were strong and healthy. But I think if you're comparing one of the majors to an invitation-only event, it's I think we sort of we're in a state of triage. I don't know if you got to deal with the most important things first. So I feel bad for Laver Cup. I can see why Tony would be upset, but I also think one event is giving $50,000 to 256 players, and one is one of the 4 pillars of the sport, and the other is an invitation-only event that's only open to 8 guys. I don't think it's it's unfortunate, but I don't think it's even really a close call. Sure.
Listen, since I know that you have a call coming up, just one prediction, if I may say so. Do you think Wimbledon will be played, and what would you suggest? If you could suggest. I mean, of course, it depends on many things, but let's say they can wait until April, or they may announce it this week. If they announce it this week, the only announcement they can make is we cancel the tournament. If they can wait until the end of April, since they don't have many works, they don't have to start working exactly on a tournament which would start in the end of June, then I don't know. What is your guess?
I would like to see what their insurance policy reads like, because I think it doesn't look good for Wimbledon. I've heard that Wimbledon is not interested in one of these closed door tournaments. That if the fans can't come in, they don't want to hold it. You look at the timeline in the UK, and you look at even what Boris Johnson has been saying. I think it's going to be very tough. I mean, at the same time, maybe those 2 Olympic weeks that just came open will help, but I think it looks very grim for Wimbledon. I don't know. If you hold an event and you don't have fans, can you get the insurance to pay off? Is the big question, I think, for a lot of these events. But I'm not very optimistic about Wimbledon this summer, unfortunately.
So, okay. Listen, thanks a lot, John. I appreciate your time, and I hope you will be available to do it again next time when I will bother you. And I promise that the next time I will be able to put the screen better so that they can see, some smiles between me and you, okay? And I wish you the best to your family. I hope you don't get the troubles that Italy is going through. I don't know what is the situation. Well, I know a bit the numbers in United States, but you're a bigger country, so numbers you cannot really compare a country with 350 millions versus one of 60 or 70 millions. But I hope you can all do better. Huh?
You as well. Crazy times. Let's
Uh,
see if we all eagerly await the days where we can go back to worrying about Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal.
okay, and match points saved or not saved. Huh?
Exactly.
Okay, okay, ciao. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Ciao.